Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is Empowering Astrology for March 7th through 13th, 2022. If you are watching this as a video, maybe you see my dog in the background. He decided to make a little sleepy time cameo, which I guess is in keeping with the astrology of this week because we're in Pisces season. And a couple weeks ago, I did my, ode to Pisces season, a little bit of love letter to Pisces season. I explained why Pisces is so important. It's a sign that we sometimes overlook, but it's the last sign of the zodiac and it serves a very particular function. It's here to bridge us between one life to the next life, one cycle to the next cycle. It represents the end of things and a time when we regroup, reflect, go within, rest, take a nap, just like my dog. Yeah, and this week we've got a lot of things going on in Pisces. We're going to have Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces. We're going to have Mercury go into Pisces this week, but mostly I do want to focus on Venus and Mars and Aquarius. We talked a little bit about that last week, but there was so much going on with the Pisces new moon that I decided to push it off to this week. But if you're watching live, do say hello. It's always nice to check in and see how we're all doing with this crazy astrology. Sorry, I'm just trying to see the comments, but I guess we'll do that another time. But yeah, I can't see you guys at the moment, but do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to check in. I know a lot of you are my clients, and yeah, let me just kind of quickly introduce myself for those that are the first time watching me. My name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area, and every week we gather to look at the astrology. And it's important to understand what is astrology. Astrology, it's time. It's the energy of time, it's archetypical time, and it's how we live time. And even though we might point to the sky and say, well, Venus is over here, Mars is over there, it's just energy. And how we are consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously working with these energies, and hopefully consciously. And every week I say the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. That's why we're all experiencing a commonality with this astrology. But at the end of the day, we are all individual people. So yeah, I mean, astrology I feel is a very powerful tool. It's a tool that we can use to really reveal ourselves. And quick tangent, but that's what the power of your birth chart is. It's exact moment that you're born, and the astrology of that exact moment is a blueprint for your life. And so I always advocate, and even though we don't talk about this explicitly here every week, but I always advocate, like, how do you best use your own astrology to grow and evolve and to reveal who you really are. So even though we're doing these check-ins every week and we're sort of looking at things on a weekly basis, but I like to zoom out and look at how maybe this week's astrology is part of a bigger story. And in fact, that's what we're going to do, because Venus and Mars going into Aquarius on March 6th, so yesterday, Sunday, as I record this, is part of a larger story. Even this lunar month that we're in, this lunar month that began last week, it's the link between the solar eclipse of December of 2021 and also the eclipse to come, the final eclipse in Gemini on May 30th of 2022. So that said, let's look at the astrology of this week of March 7th through 13th, 2022. Yeah, that's my, sorry, that's my dog. He's taking a little nap. So this week, as I record this, Mars and Venus have gone into Aquarius, and I touched a little bit upon this last week, but I wanted to push it to this week, mainly because one, Venus, it had been in a Capricorn for 4 months. That's actually a really long time for Venus to be in one sign, and that's because we had a retrograde back in December and January. And so we were really doing our work in relationships and value and self-worth and boundaries equity and looking at relationships in terms of like toxic relationships and transforming a lot of old stuff from the past. So Venus now, it's in Aquarius. Venus is the planet of relationships. It's what we love. It's what we value. It's what we invest in. It's how we socialize and connect and understand each other on a certain level. And so Venus in Aquarius now, it's attuned towards a very different sign than Capricorn. It's more about the sense of social connection and community and shared humanity, and maybe even relationships that are built on an ideal or something like an intellectual connection. But it's also Venus loves to rally behind certain causes and convictions when it's in Aquarius, and it likes to debate ideas, and it wants relationship or partnership that's based on equity and fairness and balance. And Aquarius is an air sign, so it's a very social place for Venus, but Aquarius is a social connection on a very macro level. So sometimes Venus can get a little zoomed out when it's in Aquarius, and really truly any planet in Aquarius is going to deal with life on a much bigger level, on a macro level. And Mars also went into Aquarius. So Mars will spend about 6 weeks in a sign, so that's pretty normal. It spent 6 weeks in Capricorn. But if Mars is our motivation and our desire and what inspires us and sort of pushes us to move forward, it's now an Aquarius, an air sign. So we are pushed to rally behind a social cause. We are feeling our humanity. We are maybe even pushed to connect on a humanitarian or social level. Aquarius talks about systems and networks and the things that whether connect us on a social fabric level, on a societal level, on a humanitarian level, but also the literal systems and networks in our lives, whether it's how we ship goods and services across the globe or on a more individual level. How do things move in our lives? Who are the people and the allies and the groups and support that we are a part of? So wherever Mars whatever sign Mars goes into, that's a part of your astrology. So you may be thinking, well, how is this relevant to me? I'm not an Aquarius. Well, neither am I. But Aquarius is a particular part of your chart. So this is where Mars is going to really heat something up. Venus is there as well. In a very rudimentary archetypical level, Venus is peace, Mars is war. Venus is compromise and negotiation. Mars is a little bit more individualistic and goes after what it wants. But these, and this is a little bit a technical point, these two planets are ruling the north and south node right now. Maybe you may know that the lunar nodes are now in Taurus and Scorpio. So since January 18th, I think it was, we began an 18-month period of reaching for stability, security, solid ground, having to do it in a very different way because it's in the same sign as Uranus at the moment, but South Node in Scorpio, having to really examine our fears and our insecurities, our intimacy, our vulnerability, power, control, the shadow, transformation. And so we are doing sort of our emotional and psychic work over the next 18 months. But so you have the planets that are basically the bosses of the nodes are sort of hanging out in Aquarius. And over the next month, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, both Venus and Mars will successively meet up with Saturn in Aquarius. So we have to get serious about something over the next 4 or 5 weeks. We have to get serious about a relationship or a partnership or a connection. We have to get serious about our relationship as part of the collective whole and humanity. And with Venus now in Aquarius, and it will, like I said, it'll meet up at Saturn. It will eventually square the lunar nodes along with Mars as well. I think Mars joins up with Saturn on April 4th, which is typically when Mars and Saturn come together. That's kind of an intense energy. So we're sort of starting to go into more intense energies in April, which right in time for eclipse season at the end of April of this year. But what I'm trying to say is pay attention to what's going on and how aspects of March's astrology and your own experiences and sort of the deeper themes that you're navigating around trust, around stability, security, money, power, fertility, safety, stability, if I didn't say it already, is woven into a larger story arc this year, because we're going to go into the next round of eclipses on April 30th. Then we go into a lunar eclipse on May 16th. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of the game, but it's good to look ahead and to see where we are in the larger picture. So that's why I kept saying, at the start of the year, and even when I did my my webinar on the astrology of 2022, I was saying, look at February. February is probably going to be a big month because it's connecting us to the eclipse energy of this year, and it's sort of setting the stage of a larger theme or story that we're working on. That said, here we are, we're in March, and March, that lunar month that we had last week, it's connecting us to another eclipse cycle. Although this eclipse cycle is starting to come, we're starting to go out of this eclipse cycle. It's a waning eclipse cycle. But yeah, so wherever Mars and Venus are right now, and when we look at the astrology for each of the 12 signs, you'll kind of see where this energy is picking up a bigger story. That's one of the major things that are happening this week. But the other thing that's happening this week is that Mercury, it leaves Aquarius, where Mercury is much more analytical and intellectual, big picture, abstract when it's in Aquarius, but it's going to go into Pisces on March 9th. And Mercury, it's about the mental mind. It's about analysis and process and thinking, listening, and learning. But it's going to go into Pisces, a sign that it's not typically at home in. In fact, classically would say Mercury, it's in its detriment. But Mercury just has to think and listen and learn and communicate in a very different way when it's in Pisces. So for the rest of us, we're going to have to learn how to think and listen and learn in a different way over the next few weeks, because Mercury doesn't leave Pisces until March, I think it's 27th. But during the next 3 weeks, we are more in touch with our intuition. That's the thing about Pisces. I said this at the beginning of our time together. Pisces is this sign that bridges between this world and the next world, the end of a cycle, and the beginning of a cycle. It's sort of the energies are very sensitive at the moment. The connection to the other side is quite strong or quite thin. The veil is thin, we would say. Pay attention to your dreams, your intuition. Cultivate ritual and practice, spiritual practice. Try to go into the subtleties. And I'm saying this, even with my work with clients, a lot of times we approach astrology as this thing that's very like, okay, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? And how everything is sort of like laid out already. It's already like, here's a newsflash. Your future is not written. It's actually something that's constantly changing and unfolding as you change and unfold. Although there's certain things that are very fixed or sort of a shape of things to come, but things are still unfolding, and we still have some degree of free will. We're playing a game here on planet Earth in this life, but maybe using Mercury's time in Pisces to connect to the subtle, to get out of the mental mind. Something that my guides would send to me with a client. They said the journey from here to here, from the head to the heart, can be the shortest or longest of your life. It's up to you. And so maybe with Pisces season coming to the end of the astrological year, the end of the zodiac, Mercury and Pisces, and even Sun conjunct Neptune on the 13th of March, it's a time to remind ourselves that the journey from the head to the heart, from the mind to the soul, can be the shortest or longest of our life. It's up to us. So making sure that you're using this week to get quiet, to get still, to get to rest, to sleep. That's why I was pointing out my dog in the background, because he actually has Mercury in Pisces. This is a Mercury return for him. He has Mercury conjunct Neptune, exactly, just like me, except mine's in Sagittarius. But anyway, yeah, so how are you going to use this very quiet Piscean and even Neptune energy this week? Because it's not energy that wants to be about the physical world. It's about the non-physical world. It's about, he knew we were talking about him. It's about our non-physical reality, and you are both a physical being and a non-physical being, and how we actually are more non-physical than physical. And I'm getting a little esoteric, but then again, that's what Pisces is. It's a very esoteric sign. That's why we have a hard time understanding Pisces, because we're like, oh, it's kind of floaty and dreamy and, kind of ditzy, which I think is a little unfair, because we have to truly understand Pisces. There he goes. He actually might. he's ready for his close up, or he's just kind of, yep. There he goes. That's my dog, everybody. That's me go. He had a haircut, just completely unrelated to anything we're talking about. He had a major haircut, so he's a bit short on hair at the moment. But anyway, yes. So really make space for your spirituality, your searching your soul, searching whatever you want to call it, trying to feel out the bigger answers of life. Why am I here? What am I working on? What do I need to forgive and to let go? It's another Pisces theme. The idea is that when we get to Pisces, we can start to move our awareness beyond this physical plane or this physical life and start to see things from a higher perspective. And at that level, when we get into positive Pisces, we see how we are all deeply connected. Then like I said, we have the Sun conjunct Neptune on the 13th of March. I think it's at 24 Pisces. I'd have to double check. It's going to take too long. It's probably 23 or 24 Pisces, right on my South Node. So yeah, it's one of the reasons why I know all about Pisces. I have a South Node Pisces. But so this week we might feel a little bit ungrounded. We might feel like we're kind of, physical plane is kind of slipping between our fingers, because we've got if you look at the sky right now, a lot of the planets are just in Aquarius and Pisces, with the exception of Pluto and Capricorn, Uranus and Taurus, and the lunar nodes. Everything is sort of bunched up into Aquarius and Pisces. And these are two of the most abstract signs of the zodiac, because it's no longer Aries, I, the self, individuality. It's not the collective, it's we, it's humanity, it's spirituality, and it's also the universal. So let's look at the astrology for each of the 12 signs. We're going to focus more on Mars. Who knows? Maybe we'll throw some Neptune in there as well. I say this every week, but listen for your rising sign. This is, which one is right. Actually, they both are, because if you know your rising sign, and I'm just saying this for those who don't know astrology, you do need your exact birth time. 99% of the time, you do need your exact birth time to know your rising sign. Sometimes if you have it in the ballpark, that's okay, but it gives you life from these two different a vision of life from these two different perspectives, and then you can sort of overlap it and synthesize it and see how it builds a larger story that's personal to you. So let's start with Aries. Aries, so Mars, your planet, it left Capricorn on yesterday, the 6th of March, and now it's in Aquarius, and it will be in Aquarius until April 14th. So Aquarius, for you, it's about the bigger picture. It's about your friends, your community, your sort of the greater social network that you're a part of, and it's about really figuring out who are your allies. Now, it's important for you to understand, Aries, that Saturn is also in this sign. It's been in this sign since December of 2020. So that in mind, you are in a 2.5-year period that takes you to March of 2023, where you have to take friendships seriously. And maybe, Aries, you have seen friends leave, or even old friendships end over the last year plus. But this is about, Saturn really wants you to get clear about who are your allies, who are your friends, who are your connection. And it has to be based and built on equity and stability and sort of a mutual understanding. People can come into your life at this point, but they're going to be very different. They're going to be built on something very different. And this is about having solid friendships or solid community connections or being a part of groups. Now, the other side of this is, as you come off of your time in Capricorn, and Capricorn for you represents you sort of reach the top of something. What's next? What's next, Aries? You've worked so hard. This is coming to the end of a 2-year cycle. Mars will go into Aries, I think it's in May, the end of May. And, May, June is when you start this whole new cycle when Mars returns to your sign. So this is your time to hope and dream and wish for the future, to look ahead, to vision something. And that's the beauty of this time, and maybe even all this time with this Pisces energy, is that visioning something is an important part of the creation process. It can't come into reality unless you vision it. That said, Mars will eventually meet up with Saturn. This is not until the beginning of April, but I just wanted to mention Aries, is that this is a time when you have to sort of know that the bar is set higher for you as you go into April. Do not cut corners, do not rush, do not try to undersell yourself, do not try to do things halfway, because with Saturn so close to your ruling planet, Saturn always sets a higher bar, and this could be a time to that point about you taking some big milestones, some big steps up, and really setting forth on this new chapter in your life. Taurus. So Venus, your planet, it got to Aquarius yesterday, March 6th. So until the beginning of, I believe it's April, there's this focus on you right now about career, your place in the world, your direction in life, how you steer the ship of your life. So in a way, and I kind of said this to Pisces, or not Pisces, I said this to Aries, Venus is in the same sign as Saturn right now, and you have to understand that Saturn has been in your career sign since December of 2020. So the bar right now is set higher in your professional life. On one hand, you might be asking yourself a very simple question: what do I want to be when I grow up? Here comes Venus. Now that question is stronger. It needs an answer. Now it's time for a milestone, or to make a change, or things to come together. With Mars alongside of you, this is a time when you're pushing out into the world. You're using that kind of power and drive and motivation of Mars to make things happen in your professional life. But like I said, the bar is set higher right now for you, and you have to sort of abide by Saturn into April. Abiding by Saturn means honoring your commitments, honoring time, your schedule, showing up on time, following through, doing what you said you would do, but also stepping into this role of authority. And if you're not sure what you want to do in your professional life, this is a month that's really pushing you to figure that out. If you do know what you want to do in your professional life, this is a month that's really trying to consolidate and push you to take the next step up in your life. Gemini. So Aquarius is your 9th sign, and it's important to put maybe a couple bigger points into framework. So number one, Mercury is your planet. Mercury has been in Capricorn Capricorn's in Aquarius, sorry. It's been in Aquarius for the past couple of weeks, last few weeks. So this, in a way, is something that you've already been doing. You've been trying to figure out, what do you believe in? What's your truth? What's your faith? What are your convictions? What do you stand for? It's been a very intellectual time for you, Gemini. But with so much focused on what's called your 9th sign, Saturn is there as well. Maybe we talked about this last week with Mercury conjunct Saturn. The bar is set higher for you. So Mercury will be moving on. It's going to go into your 10th sign of Pisces on March 9th. It's your career. It's all about taking your responsibilities seriously, It's another reminder, Gemini, that with Pisces as your career sign, whatever you do in this world, your heart better be in it. Your soul better be in it. You better love it. Otherwise, it's going to get a little bit wonky. But that said, the ninth, where Mars and Saturn and Venus are at the moment, it's not just about faith and truth. It's also about education. And maybe you're thinking about taking classes or going back to school. And education also includes seeing the world in whatever way you want to define that. Some people see the world by hopping on a plane. Some people see the world by learning as much as they can about the world at large. But this is the point that I wanted to make about Capricorn and how 2022 for you, Gemini, is a year when Pluto is coming to its last full year in what's called your eighth sign. And this has been 14 years, yes, 14 years of you really doing a lot of deep psychic work. And with that in mind, it's at this point, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? Like, how do you see yourself? How do you see the world? How have you opened up to something? Because certainly Pluto has been trying to clear a path for the better part of a decade. But that said, it's a very forward-looking time for you. It's a very intellectual time, and a time when you're starting to arc your way out into the world and to get in touch with sort of these bigger ideals, your career, and then eventually, as we get into Aries season, friends and community, and looking ahead towards your future. Cancer. So Aquarius, and I'm kind of making this point with some of the other signs. I'm going to step back for a moment. So in December 2020, a planet went into Aquarius, and that planet's Saturn. Imagine you're looking at a clock face, and here comes this big hand of the clock, and now it's pointing towards your eighth. And this is something that I affectionately call, it's like the eighth hour, the eighth sign, the eighth room. I sometimes say room because I want people to realize astrology is something that they inhabit. So all throughout 2021, and here we are in the first 2 months of 2022, and for another year, Saturn is in your eighth. So this is a time when you have to take the deepest parts of yourself seriously. You have to face yourself, look at yourself, do the deep inner work. It's not easy. In fact, it's probably exhausting at this point. But if astrology tells us about time and what time it is, then this is your time of Cancer where you have to do this work. And the time you won't have to do this work for another 3 decades. I know, 3 decades. So Saturn's already in this room. Saturn is already saying that you have to do, take your emotional health seriously, your mental health seriously, to your psyche, and facing your fears and delving into old traumas so that you can release them. There's my dog. Here comes Mars and Venus, and they're sort of activating this part of your chart even more. And it's maybe something that you have been dealing with, needs more attention, or it sort of takes on more of a pull, it demands something more from you, or maybe it's something you haven't been dealing with, and here comes Venus and Mars, and now you have to deal with it. That's the thing about Mars, is that it makes things happen, it pushes buttons. So maybe as you get into the beginning of April, and even in the run-up to April, this is a time for you to really get to the heart of something, because by the time Mars gets back to Aquarius, Saturn's not going to be there anymore, thank God. But that said, this could be that month for you, and even April, that month for you, or something that you've been sort of dealing with. You face it, you shift it, you take some sort of personal, emotional, spiritual milestone in this time. On a more mundane level, Venus and Mars in this part of your chart does talk about finance and investments and wealth and debt, and having to look at financial matters, and even looking at, am I safe? Is this thing stable? Is things secure? Even looking at matters of intimacy and vulnerability at this time. But that said, Cancer, this has been a really deep emotional time for you. So just when you're doing that eighth room work, as I call it, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you have support and allies, a therapist, a counselor, a trusted confidant, because you're going to need the nourishment. You're going to need to feel like you're safe to continue to do this deep work on yourself. And maybe that's where Mars and Venus come into this story. Leo. Leo. So Aquarius is a fixed sign. You're a fixed sign. So this is sort of pushing at some of the bigger buttons, not necessarily bad buttons, but pushing at some of the buttons in your life. So Aquarius is your relationship sign. And it's important to understand that since December of 2020, Saturn has been in your relationship sign. So for Leo, this is a time for Leo to take relationships seriously. This means different things to different people, of course. Maybe you have been in a long-term partnership or marriage or whatever, and here comes Saturn, and Saturn likes to make sure that something is stable, solid, and it's going to take you towards the future. So you've been doing your work with somebody, and if a relationship isn't stable or solid, Saturn so helpfully points that out. But like I said, people are going to experience this in different ways. But if you're not in a relationship, and this is not just romantic relationships, this is all relationships and partnership, it's about other people. This is like a huge story arc chapter in your life right now, Leo, where it is about other people and reminding you stubbornly that you can't do life alone. Life needs partnership, needs equity and balance. So here come Mars and Venus, two major players in your astrology, and they go into the same sign as Saturn. Life is maybe a little bit interesting at the moment. You are dealing with some sort of deeper issue around trust and security and stability and vulnerability in a relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship or not an intimate relationship. And eventually, Mars and Venus are going to meet up with Saturn as we go into the end of March and the beginning of April. So that's a time when you're going to have to make some decisions, Leo. Is something working? Is something not working? If it is working, what is the next step in its growth and evolution? What's the next milestone? Is it two people committing to each other? Is it two people moving in together? Is it two people breaking up? Is it an alliance or a partnership that needs some structural changes, for example? But this is a big time, Leo, and it's just a reminder in general, Leo, that 2022 is a big year for you. Things are, especially in your professional life and the direction of your life, really trying to galvanize and come together and build upon the changes and a lot of personal changes that have been happening since May 2018, March 2019. But like I said, this is a big time for you, Leo, and really try to open yourself up and learn to negotiate and compromise with other people. Virgo, so first things first, your planet Mercury, it goes into Pisces on March 9th, and Mercury in Pisces means that the next few weeks until the end of March, it's about other people. That can mean different things. On one hand, it's about focusing on a relationship, whether it is your primary partnership or a relationship in general in your life. Reminding you about that this is a time about other people is just that this is the time astrologically when it's like we can't do things alone. We need partnership. We need connection. And so maybe this is a time when other people need more from you, or maybe this is a time when you are naturally more social, getting out there, connecting with people, especially building upon that Pisces new moon that we had last week, which is all about relationships, other people, and hopefully, for how this is relevant to everybody, new people coming into your life. Aquarius, on the other hand, is about health and wellness for you, Virgo. And it's a reminder that with Saturn there since December of 2020, you have to take your health, your wellness, your body, your work, your schedule, the mundane details of being a human seriously. So you can't cut corners, you can't rush, you can't neglect your health, you can't maybe even keep eating the same things that you've been eating. It's all about how do you get the physiological systems and networks of your life in order. And on a person level, maybe this is about getting, your life in order, your life organized, getting rid of things. For example, Saturn's going to be in this part of your chart to March of 2023. So it's like your systems all need to be running tip top by now. I mean, I realize it's a work in progress. Saturn's going to be here for another year, but Saturn, and especially with Mars and Venus there now, it's like, oh, right, health needs to be good. We need to make sure we stay on schedule, we stay organized, we need to do some projects, we need to make sure everything is running smoothly and in balance at the moment. But if there is a health challenge, how do you use Mars positively to take action, to take initiative with your physical life, whether it's making some appointments, getting something looked at, getting a second opinion, making changes in diet, fitness, nutrition, all so that you can take care of your physical body and your physical life differently. Libra. So Aquarius for you is what's called your fifth sign, and Venus is your planet, and Venus went into Aquarius yesterday, March 6th. So Venus is going to spend the next month in Aquarius, and this is a time for you, two things. Number one, Venus in Aquarius is a little bit of an intellectual placement for Venus. You're thinking about the big picture. It's about the future. It's about visions for future. It's about humanity and society. But it's also about friends and social connection. But that said, the fifth sign of your astrological chart is about self-expression and really getting back to who you are. That said, Saturn's been in this place since December of 2020. And so this is a time when, until March of 2023, you have to take yourself and take your talents seriously. This is about what is inside of you. And we all have that essence of who we are, like this energetic signature that is ours and ours alone. And that's what differentiates us from all 8 billion people on this planet. Well, what are you doing with that, Libra? Are you putting it into a project? Are you creating a piece of art? Are you taking that and putting it into your passions? What really lights you up? Are you playing with this energy? I mean, the fifth is the house of children in astrology, and children, of course, can come in many forms, whether we are taking the spark of who we are and making it a baby, or taking the spark of who we are and something that really is an extension of who we are, whether it's a creative project or something that really, again, fuels us. And I think it's just a simple reminder is that passion is important. Passion is not a luxury. We have to make sure that we are being lit up and fed. So make sure this is a time, Saturn, how do you get back to yourself? How do you make space and make time for the things that are really allowing you to be you? But Mars and Venus are big players in your astrology. Mars is a relationship planet for you. So maybe this time is also about some serious romance, if that's something that's relevant to you. But have fun, play seriously. But of course, I think with Mars, Venus, and Saturn in your fifth, this is a time for you to take yourself seriously. Scorpio. So Aquarius is what's called your fourth sign. So the fourth sign in anybody's astrology chart forms the base and foundation. It sets down roots. And Saturn's been there since December of 2020. So from December of 2020 all the way to March of 2023, while Saturn is in Aquarius, you have to answer some simple questions. Where is home and who is home? And maybe even another question is like, how am I going to get my needs met? So Saturn, meanwhile, is asking you these big questions, and maybe in the last year and a half, at this point, a year and a half, you've made a move, or maybe family has taken on a bigger role in your life, or maybe you are trying to figure out who family is in your life, or who are the most important people in your life. But this is a time to really set down foundation. Now, I say that because here comes Venus and Mars. Now, Venus and Mars are in the same sign now as Saturn, and Venus for you is a relationship sign. Mars is you. So this is all about getting down to the core of who you are, your core needs, your core support, core stability. And this is about home and family. And again, coming back to those big questions of who is home, where is home. And as both Venus and Mars meet up with Saturn at the end of March, going into the beginning of April, this is probably going to be a big month for you, and one that kind of presages and connects to these larger themes of 2022 for you, because this is a big time for you, Scorpio. But with Mars kind of in the room with you, even though that Mars Saturn conjunction is not until April 4th, the bar is set higher for you, Scorpio. This is a time for you to make serious decisions, to weigh your options, to put down roots, to set a bar higher for yourself. So I think you're going to be hustling a little bit into April, but this is a good hustle. This is sort of like, when Saturn's looking over your shoulder, you're like, oh shoot, I can't slack off anymore. I gotta do things right. I gotta get things organized. But this is a time it's big and powerful, fundamental time for you, Scorpio, and one that's really laying a bigger foundation that will go into many, many years to come, because Saturn's not going to be back in this part of your chart for another 30 years. So just, something to think about, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Aquarius is your third sign, and Saturn has been there since December of 2020. So there's been this larger story arc that's been unfolding over the last year and a half about the mind and voice and communication, and having to take voice and communication and learning and thinking seriously. And I think this is a time for Sagittarius where it needs to really weigh the words that it uses, and maybe even think about communication in a different way. This is a time to weigh options, to sort of see things from a couple of perspectives. And it's a reminder, and I kind of made this point a little bit esoterically at the beginning, the future's not written. There's certain things that are more set in place, but there are sort of these parallel timelines that we are sort of weaving in and out of any moment. And I kind of say this because here you are, Saturn is in your sign of choice. So there's this time for you to really weigh your choices and weigh your options seriously. But that said, it is a big time for you in general, Sagittarius, because Jupiter is down in Pisces. That's another, listen to last week's story, but that our last week's video. But that said, this is the third is a busy part of the chart in general. It wants to move, it wants to do things, it wants to socialize and connect and talk and chat. It wants to read, it wants to speak. So maybe you have a lot to say. Mars certainly wants to say a lot, but Saturn can sometimes make us a little overly cautious or need to weigh our words wisely. Thankfully, we have Venus here. Venus is a little bit more the mediator, the peacekeeper, and sort of looking at things and choosing your words wisely in a way that will actually be supportive instead of just straight cold Mars. But that said, education might be a big focus right now, and even travel. And certainly this part of the chart talks about local travel, neighborhood trips, but maybe even some further stuff afar as we get to different parts of the year. Capricorn. So Venus and Mars have gone into what's called your second sign. And as I've been saying for all the other previous signs, Saturn has been in this part of your chart since December of 2020. And hey, Capricorn, Saturn is your planet. So over the last year and a half, there's been such a focus on money, income, material stability, material security, and making investments. And really, Saturn is trying to ask you some simple questions at the moment, one of which is it worth it? And I think the thing when Saturn goes to the second is that we have to have a very different relationship with money by the time Saturn gets out of the money part of the chart. And that means that we can't spend the way that we used to, because Saturn wants you to be very aware of the price of things and sort of the time and effort and whatever that went into making something happen. So you have to be very focused on spending and how you earn a living at this point. Doesn't mean that you can't spend. We just have to sort of abide by Saturn's accounting rules at the moment. It's a good way of putting it. Even though you are Saturn ruled, the bar is always set higher for you, Capricorn, but at the same time, you got to really do the accounting right now. So here comes Venus and Mars, and Venus and Mars are big players in your astrology. So this is a time where value, worth, buying things, investing, ownership, It's all big themes for you right now. And maybe with Mars and Venus there, you're spending a lot, but don't forget, Saturn is always saying, is it worth it? Is this something that's actually going to support your life, to help you to build a stronger material life, to have the resources that you need? Again, is it worth it? So maybe that's a question that you're really asking yourself as you go into April. Aquarius. So as I've been making this point for all the other previous signs, Saturn has been in Aquarius since December of 2020. Hey, you are an Aquarius. So Saturn's in your sign. And even though you are what are called Saturn ruled, so maybe you think, oh, that shouldn't be too bad. Saturn's in its own sign. But this is the thing. Saturn is putting a lot of pressure on you right now. It's the start, or pretty much the start at this point, of a 30-year chapter. I know 30 years is a long, long time, but since December of 2020, Saturn has basically looked around your life and said, okay, it's time for new beginnings. It's time to take action. It's time to move forward, but it's time to do it in a way that's very purposeful, very serious, very mature. Yeah, the maturity bar is set way higher for you right now. So this is a time where you can't maybe do things the way that you did a couple of years ago. You have to really think about your future and think about the responsibilities and duties that you have in this life. So I know that sounds really super boring, but here come Venus and Mars, and Venus and Mars are two major players in your astrology. And because Venus is a planet that rules Uranus, it's down at the bottom of your chart, this may spark some themes in the home and new beginnings in the home and sort of these new chapters in the home and needing to set a new course in your home environment. But that said, Venus and Mars are really asking you to move forward, to take action, to connect with people. But this is a sort of a big chapter for you right now, Aquarius, and it's sort of pushing things along and moving forward as you go into the rest of the month. But like I said, this is a time of new beginnings, new chapters, new milestones for you, Aquarius, and really touching on a bigger story that's been unfolding since December 2020, when Saturn, your planet, returned back to Aquarius. Sorry, it's like the sound in the background. I'm so sorry. Pisces. So here we are at the end of the zodiac. It's Pisces season. It's your birthday season, Pisces. We had the Pisces new moon last week. So that was sort of this beautiful, hopefully beautiful birthday gift to all my Pisces out there. And if your birthday was last week on that Pisces new moon, I think it was the 4th of March, the 2nd of March. It's a new beginning for you, and one that's about new opportunities and new horizons and going off into a new adventure for the next year. That said, it's important to make a few bigger points. Saturn is a planet that's been hanging out in Aquarius, what's called your 12th sign, since the end of 2020, since December of 2020. So Saturn there is kind of a weird place for Pisces to be right now, because on one hand, you've got Jupiter in Pisces. It's about new beginnings and moving forward. But then you have Saturn that's sort of at the end of your astrology chart, and it's also about endings and letting go. And the metaphor that I've used over and over again for this time for Pisces, it's like you're looking around at the boxes of your life, looking at the last 30 years or however many years, and really trying to figure out, what do you want to keep and what do you want to let go? And even though we have one more year of Saturn in Aquarius, that's still a year where you've got one foot in an old life, an old chapter, an old cycle. So I think with both Mars and Venus showing up in the 12th, it's a time to really honor this time in your life. And again, this is something that I've said at the beginning of our time together in the intro, is that what is astrology? Astrology is about time and really understanding where the hands on the clock are and working with where the hands on the clock are. So it's maybe sometimes not what we want to know, that this is a time about releasing, letting go, preparing for a new life, rest, recharging our batteries, searching our soul, meditating, trying to answer these sort of deeper existential questions. But here come Venus and Mars this week, and they're reminding you that you have to go within. And even though we think of Pisces as this very spiritual signs, very esoteric, but not all Pisces. And so maybe this is a time for you to remember that you do have this deeper spiritual life, this deeper esoteric life, or this is a time when you need to get into the subtleties. I will say this is a little more classical, traditional look at this. With Venus and Mars in your 12th, don't push, don't try it, because there's so much pushing you. Maybe she's a different word. There's so much pointing you towards rest and to recharge your batteries. And with that, you just might not have as much energy as you typically do, Pisces. Maybe that energy is best spent, 12th house, on a spiritual and esoteric matter, or even meditation, reflection, and trying to go within, because that's where the action of the chart is happening right now. So really understand, Pisces, is that it may be as annoying as it is, you've got one foot in a new life, and you're seeing this new life move forward, but you still got things that are pulling you back to an old life. And this is about really with consciousness, with awareness, with compassion, letting some things go that you do not want to bring with you into 2023. Yeah, sorry for that noise. Some sort of vibration that's happening. But anyway, that is your look at the astrology of March 7th through 13th, 2022. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this has been your look at the astrology and how to work with it. Of course, again, this has been Empowering Astrology. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. Actually, I forgot to mention something. I'm going to put this in the show notes. I'm doing an event. It's a live event. I'm being hosted by something called the 6 Degrees Society. This event is typically a members only event, but they are opening up to my audience with a code. This is a talk on the astrology of 2022 on March 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's East Coast time here in the United States. That's 4:30 p.m. Pacific. The code is Astro22. Astro22. Again, this is all going to be in the I'll put it in Instagram stories. I'll put it in my materials, but this is so that you can join me and get this free event. It's actually pretty cool. This is a networking event that I've spoken with. I've done speaking engagements since 2019, so the past few years. So anyway, thank you all for joining me again for another live look at the astrology. Again, you can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Spotify as well. And until next week, be well. Take care. Bye-bye.